Hello YouTube. In this video, it's a full build, full featured video of building the garden trug that my wife wanted. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a few pictures of the finished product, and then we'll start right in on the build right from scratch and take you right on through until I get to the finished product again. This is not my design. It's a design that my wife found, and I'm going to put the link to the Instructables article and with the plans and instructions and everything. I'll put it in the video description below. So check that out. And now I think I might work on one of my own designs, and so that'll come up in the future. This is a handy little tool. If you're out in the garden, you want to pick out a few vegetables for dinner, go out there and pick a few and bring them in. And this is it's a handy little item to have. So here you go. And don't forget, I need you to like and share and subscribe, and and don't forget to ring the little bell, all that good stuff. Really appreciate it. Helps out my channel. See you next time. And again, another last thing. I just want to give a shout out to Rob Allen, latest patron for Downeast Thunder Creations and Shoestring Shipyard on Patreon. Welcome aboard, and thank you very much. I'm building a garden trug. So what is a garden trug? I had no idea until recently. My wife found this online and she said she wanted one. And basically what it is, it's a garden basket. And so that's what I'm going to make for her. She wanted one, and so why not? And she downloaded a bunch of pages of pictures and instructions from Instructables. Yeah, Instructables. And it's, I guess the design is by a guy who goes by the name of NESLO63. So he built his out of solid pieces of wood, but I don't have any wood that size. So what I did, I took a whole bunch of scraps kicking around the shop, and I cut them up, and I've been gluing them together. And so each end of this trug has a piece longer than all the rest because it's going to make up part of the handle. And so I'm just going to glue that onto these. This will make up one end. That'll make up the other end. So I just have to do a little bit of a glue up here. And I can clamp them both. I can clamp it all together at the same time. And then once I have this glued up, and the glue is all solid, I can run both of these ends through the planer, both sides, so I get a nice smooth surface, and then I have something to work with. So right now I just want to apply some wood glue, and this is an exterior, somewhat waterproof wood glue that I'm using, carpenter's glue, and this should do the trick. And I want to make sure I have enough on there. I don't want to starve it. I think it looks a little weak here in a couple of places, so just add a little bit more glue. I don't care if it squeezes out. I'll scrape off any excess later. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to put this one facing that end. This one faces that end. Put them in the clamps. And let me just start drawing it together. And I'll leave this clamped up for about, maybe 2 or 3 hours, probably 3 hours. And then I can take it out of the clamps. And then I'll let it sit overnight because the glue won't be fully cured. And I want to let it sit at least 24 hours. I've let the coating of sanding sealer cure overnight so that now it's nice and hard. And when I apply the sanding sealer or any other liquid, what that does is it raises the grain. You have little fuzzies on the surface. Now that would happen if I used paint or any kind of lacquer or any kind of liquid at all. And the trouble is, if you paint it like that or you put on polyurethane, when the grain raises and leaves those little fuzzies, they stay that way and you don't have a very smooth finish. By applying the sanding sealer, that does raise the grain with the little fuzzies, but then it solidifies, it's hard. So now I can go over this with a very light sandpaper, and I'm just going to do it by hand because I really don't want to take off a lot. I'm just trying to remove the surface fuzzies. And what's going to be left is a nice smooth surface, and because I have the sanding sealer on it, when I go to apply any other coating, whether it be paint or polyurethane or lacquer or anything, the grain is not going to raise again. It's going to stay flat and I'm going to have a nice, smooth, glossy surface. And it doesn't take much. Just going over it lightly like this will knock off the fuzzies. So it's only a few moments. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. It's important to get around those edges. I'm also keeping the sandpaper in relatively a couple of different directions and not swirling it around because I don't want to put a lot of round scratches in it. I just want to knock off those surface fuzzies and that's it, nothing more. And I'm not going to make you sit through the whole thing. I'm going to go through all these parts, and once I do that, I'll go over this with a tack cloth. I'll clean it off so I get rid of any dust, and then I can go ahead and start coating with some polyurethane. I have a clear satin polyurethane which can be used outdoors, and I'm going to apply this with a brush. I'm going to put maybe 2 or 3 coats on it, and I'll do a light sanding like you saw me do earlier with the sanding sealer. I don't even have to use sandpaper for that. I can just use one of those 3M Scotch-Brite scrubby pads just to rough up the surface in between coats after this dries, and that way there I'll get a good adhesion between coats. And again, I'm not going to make you sit through all this. I mean, it doesn't take any special skill to swing a paintbrush really for this type of an application. So I'll be back when I'm finished, and I just want to point out that the reason I'm doing the finish work on the parts now before I've actually assembled the Trug is because it's going to be a lot easier to get to the parts when they're disassembled than it will be when it's after the final assembly, when I have hardware cloth in the grooves, because then trying to paint around the hardware cloth without getting it on the hardware cloth itself would be rather difficult. I don't think you can actually do it. So I'll just apply the finish coats now. I'll be done with it, and then when I assemble it, the hardware cloth will be clean, won't have any drips or paint or anything on it, and it'll look a lot better. So that's all there is to this. Now this is a bit tricky. Not easy. Not by itself anyway. Let's see what I can do here. Try it this way. Almost not there yet. Okay. A couple of clamps will help things along. Okay, so if you're lucky enough to get to this stage, now it's a matter of getting these top rails aligned where you want them, and then putting a screw in on each end, and you want them countersunk so you can put a little wood plug in later, if you want to put in a wood plug, I guess. Okay, now it's time to fit the handle. So I'm just going to eyeball it, roughly centered between the two posts. And I'll take a pencil, draw a line on each end. Oop, it moved on me. Okay, hold that. Okay, I have some reasonable lines to go by, and now I just have to cut them. This part's a little tricky because it goes across at a diagonal, so you really can't hold it in place with clamps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it by hand, get a screw started, and then hold it on the other end. So I'm going to hold it roughly in the position I want it. And then I'm going to, just so I can see where I want to start the drill, probably right about there. I want to get an angle, about the same angle. Okay. So I figured I'd draw I'd drill the counterbore first. And now we'll hold this in position. Okay, so I got a screw started. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. A little bit difficult getting this held together. Maybe I can bring it in a little bit tighter with the clamp. That might help a little bit. Since this is the first time I'm building one of these, it's the first go round. That seems to help a little bit. So I'll get a drill and a countersink here. So I think that's just about it. And now it's just a matter of making up some wood plugs to put into where I countersunk those screws. Other than that though, there's the Trug. So here it is, the completed Trug. And I did not put any plugs, any wood plugs in the countersunk holes over the screws, simply because I didn't have a plug cutter the proper size to cut the plugs out, put them in. They were either too big or too small, and I didn't have any dowels I could use, nor did I have any little wood caps that I could insert. So I'll just have to install those later. But for all intents and purposes, this is finished. Once again, this is not my design. It was designed by somebody who put the instructions on the internet. They posted it on Instructables, and this is something that my wife had forwarded to me, and she wanted one, so this is for her. And I may design one of these maybe a little bit differently, maybe a little bit easier construction, in which case I'll probably make the plans available. But for all intents and purposes, this one is done. And as they say, happy wife, happy life. And if Mama's not happy, no one is happy. I hope this makes my wife happy, getting this Trug that she wanted. If you look in the item description below the video, I will include all the pertinent details. You'll get the link to the Instructables article for this particular design, with all the instructions and pictures, step-by-step photos, and you know, all the dimensions you need, and all that's there. It's not terribly difficult to build, and you don't have to have a CNC machine. I just happen to use it because I have it. It makes life easier for me, but you can do this all with regular hand tools. So I hope you like the video, and please comment your ideas, your thoughts below in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you and see what you think.